Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. So today I'm going to be doing a quick tutorial or maybe a quick presentation of GraphQL. What is GraphQL? Why we use it? Why compared to, for example, REST? What are the benefits? And also maybe if we have time, a quick tutorial on how it works. But before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Abdallah. I'm a software engineer for the past decade or so. And for me, I have a big interest in sharing whatever I learn. So right now, I just worked quite a lot on GraphQL, especially with Apollo. So I'm trying to share my knowledge on that. And if you have any question later, please reach out to me. Okay, let's start. What is GraphQL? First, a little bit of the origin of GraphQL itself. So it seems like Facebook started GraphQL in 2020 on 12 and it was released as open source in 2015. So it seems that Facebook developed GraphQL from scratch and they use it internally, and it was open source in 2015, and the founder is Lee Byron. Never heard of him, but he seems like a very good developer and created a few different libraries. I think he also helped with React, of course. Okay, that's good. That's very good. In fact, so what is GraphQL itself? So it's, in my opinion, it's a type system whereby you describe your data, you ask exactly for what you want, and you get predictable results. So it's basically a query language for your API. Helps you to, so it's an alternative to REST, gives you exactly what you ask for and nothing more or nothing less. It's saying here that GraphQL offers and stable. So maybe that's true. I don't really know, but what I do know is that yeah, indeed, it's very powerful. It's quick as well. I'm just trying to. Well, my mouse is not, my cursor is not appearing, so it's not. Well, I want it to appear, but later maybe. Okay, I think personally the biggest pro is that you can, in a single request, you can get many resources, and this is particularly true when you're working, when you're using microservices. So with a normal REST API, you need to query a lot of different servers, but with GraphQL, you query um, you do one query, and the GraphQL implementation will sort it out. So of course it's a type system, and I think it's quite amazing if you're going to use it with languages that are not strong type or particularly type like JavaScript, Ruby, and so on. And of course you have powerful developer tools. You don't even need to, you can evolve your API without versioning, so that's quite nice. You of course you implement your own things in behind. So a lot of companies already use GraphQL. Facebook, who actually created it, GitHub, Pinterest, Intuit, etc., and etc. You can have more GraphQL users, so it's pretty good. And in terms of code, how does it work? So the language support is quite popular. But before we continue with that, let's just see how we use it and how it's used compared to REST API, because I think REST API is much easier to learn, and most web developers have used it at least once, and most developers in general have an idea how it works. So you have, for example, you're looking for a resource online, you use the HTTP protocol and you use the REST API protocol, and for example, you have a verb that denotes something. Right now, the verb is self-explanatory. We are using the get to get this resource, and it returns to us first name, middle name, last name, etc. Versus with GraphQL, what is the difference? So you have the entity person, and you just want the first and the last name. So the data that is returned is you have a data, and then you have your person first name. So this can be quite interesting. But how about a showdown? So here refer from Cosmic GS and here from Kingstar. So, okay, what is the difference in terms of performance? Like I just explained, is you do a single request and it's very fast. But what I can tell you is that when you build production grade, enterprise grade, production grade with millions of users, then the scalability itself, it can be questioned for sure. But yeah, there is a distinct advantage here is that you do one request and rest you do multiple requests. In terms of query complexity, the query can become complex very fast. That's true because you are merging different client requests. So normally with REST, since there are different endpoints for different queries, of course you need to type a lot more codes, but they're very simple. Just one endpoint representing something. And the popularity is still growing in 2023. REST is very popular since more than a decade. And indeed, the support and the community resources are a bit lacking for GraphQL. I noticed that especially with Apollo Client. I will come to Apollo Client in a few minutes. However, with REST, it's huge and it has support in all the popular, even non so popular programming language like I don't know, maybe Lua, for example. You do have you do have plenty of resources for it. So the learning curve, I concur. GraphQL has a steep learning curve. It's not obvious right from the start, and actually, if you're joining a big project that use GraphQL, it can take you days just to get the hang of it. While with REST API, you just have one endpoint, and normally it represents your route in your application. That's your starting point, and you just start working on it directly. You don't have file uploading with GraphQL, so I didn't know that, and that can be a deal breaker to be honest. While of course with REST we have it, web caching inbuilt with REST, while you need to use another web library, so that can be a pro for REST. And yeah, so the recommended use case, since it was initially designed and conceived at Facebook, it's used for multiple microservices and mobile apps, while for REST, simple apps and resource driven application. So here you go. For me, if you're going to be working with mobile devices and microservices, then look no further ahead. GraphQL is your friend. Otherwise, let's keep it simple and let's use REST. But one thing that I find quite funny is that microservices, right off the bat, they are very complex because they are part of the distributed architecture. But now you have another quite complex technology in GraphQL to solve this other hard problem. So maybe if you want something simpler, you can either use a monolithic framework like Ruby on Rails, Django, and Laravel, or if you want to use like a bit more of the single page application like Angular, Vue, and React, then of course you can use them and use your REST API in your favorite backend framework. So without further ado, without any further delay, let's get started with the code base. So like I said, it's very bright the screen. GraphQL has a tremendous language support from JavaScript to D. I don't even know what D is. But here you have some functional programming language that are such as Scala and Elm, Haskell as well. You have our future favorites, Rust, Ruby, PHP, and all the very common one. Ballerina, I heard about this. Julia as well. Julia is supposed to be a programming language for data. It's a rival to Python. So let's see how it goes. So let's take an example with JavaScript because JavaScript is quite easy to start with. So let's say you want just to build a type. For example, hello world. The query so just to separate, we have with GraphQL we have two type of actions. One is the query where you get the data, and then you have the mutation when you change the data. So here it's an example of use of the action, the query. So it looks quite weird. But let's say you want a server itself. So one thing maybe just before we go. No, no. We will. I will actually show you in a few seconds how it works. Just an example. Just you install Apollo server, which is a server for. It is a GraphQL server from Apollo. I think it's Apollo on the moon job. The moon. They went to the moon. That works with any Node.js HTTP framework. Okay, fair enough. So you just install it. You run Node the server node server.js with this code, and it's going to work beautifully well. So you have types and you have resolvers. Of course, we will come to this later, and this is quite complex actually. You look at this example with pure JavaScript with GraphQL JS directly. It seems simple enough. If you are used to Node.js, it's straightforward, but this one looks quite tricky because you have type def and resolvers and you have your server itself, but no worries. However, before we continue any further, we need to know what is Apollo server. So we move a bit more towards this docs theme. So maybe we keep the doc one on. So yes, introduction, what is Apollo server? Apollo Server is an open source spec compliant GraphQL server that's compatible with any GraphQL client, including Apollo client. Yeah, of course, because they have the same name. It's the best way to build a production ready, self-documenting GraphQL API. Yeah, so that's very pro side, I can tell you. And you can use data from any source. Okay, so how it works, it's basically like a middleware sitting in between your front end and your back end. Your front end can be a web application, can be Android or iOS, while your back end can have your REST API, microservice, database. Okay, yeah, you can actually code your implementation of your GraphQL queries to, because it's going to be implemented in a language, so you can directly query your database. And the best part is that, let's say you have different microservices, different systems in behind, and you can just use a common mm, query to do all of that. Of course, it sounds good. It actually sounds too good to be true, but there is quite a steep learning curve in it. So to install it, though, you just install the Apollo GraphQL and incremental adoption, and you, of course, let's get started. So what time is it? So let's just see if I have some time. We're just going to create a sample project for that. So new window. Okay. Okay, very good. So I will just use bash because I use zh but for JavaScript I've not inherited from bash. So we are going to go to documents. So I can type this morning projects, no, playground. And then this program have so many things. mkdir GraphQL cd GraphQL. Okay, clear this window, and now what do we have? We have this example, so we are just copy. We are quite lazy people. We're just going to copy. Okay, fair enough. Now we are going to initialize a new Node.js application project with npm or any other such as yarn. So I do have yarn, but since it's in npm, let's just copy it in npm. Okay, it just created the package, so I'm just going to use a bit of a different, yes, just to make it a bit more fun. Okay, so we are going to be using S modules, top level await, so that's pretty awesome. Now we are going to need to install our dependencies. So we have two dependencies, namely the Apollo server and of course GraphQL. So just copy paste as usual. Do you remember a long time ago when you needed to install an application on Windows, you just click on next, next, next. But now as a developer, what you do is you just copy and paste. It's basically the next. So follow the instruction below to set up with either TypeScript or JavaScript. Though that's a very good question. So since it's recommended to use TypeScript, let's use TypeScript. So okay, Just to look at the folder structure, we have only the package module and the node module, so nothing much. Well, same, quit. Okay, right now we are just going to make a new directory called source, and in source we are going to create a new file called index.ts. And of course, since we are going to be using TypeScript, we need to install TypeScript dependency and the nodes. So it's basically to know the types because you are using TypeScript. So for me personally, my opinion is that you can use either TypeScript or JavaScript, it doesn't matter, but somehow when you want your project to be more scalable, then I think TypeScript can definitely make a difference. So of course we need to touch this file, we need to create TypeScript config, and this is basically copy paste. We don't have the patience to uh, to go to this is scaffolding code. This is like boilerplate code actually. And Vim, and we are going to open this, and then we're going to paste it. So does it work? So save it. Seems to be all good. For more information on the compile options above, see yes, that's what I was saying, but it's already given to us. We don't need to think too much about it. Okay, now finally replace default scripts entry with your package JSON with the following type and script entries. Okay. So let's go to the package zone, and then we are going to type module. We need to add the type module here. Copy paste as usual. Copy, and here it's here. We paste it. So it seems good. For the script, we need to add these two ones. So we can safely delete this one. We paste it. So the indentation is not really working, so it's not a problem. Okay, the above is start script test TypeScript compile your code into JavaScript, and then it's all good. All good. So okay, maybe we'll continue in another video.